Hey guys, welcome back to my podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Rebecca.
I'm here with my beautiful wife here in Hawaii.
Come on.
We are in Maui, Hawaii.
Yes.
Celebrating my birthday week.
Yes.
And thank God for this blessing to be here, enjoying nature, the beauty that God has created.
True dream come true.
This is a bucket list for us. And
like the last 10 years, actually.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just, if you could see what I'm seeing right now, this resort is beautiful.
So breathtaking.
The water, we were just, here yesterday, seeing the ocean.
Taking it all in.
The sea turtle, the waves, the rocks.
Yeah, we were just walking, enjoying ourselves, and we saw 2 sea turtles.
The crystal clear water is just beautiful. And we want to just thank God for our family and friends that sowed this into us to be here at the beautiful Ritz-Carlton.
Yes.
What an honor.
So much.
And we are making the most of it.
Yeah, we are.
As a matter of fact, this is the best opportunity, I think, for us to talk about love and sex.
Hey, come
because we're living it.
Yeah, that's chocolate.
We are living it each and every day, and we are loving it. And, we are almost 15 years married.
Yeah.
And we've had an amazing journey, and I could honestly say and testify that our love and sex life just keeps getting better.
Yes.
It's a beautiful journey when you do it in God and when you do it, with love.
And also, it's like what you said. You've always said this, that sex is like an art, and it keeps
growing. It's like a muscle in terms of communication and just, loving one another. But today, we want to do part 2 here from Hawaii.
Yes.
We've gotten amazing feedback from our audience.
Thank you so much for those that have commented in our Instagram pages.
Before we continue, make sure to like, comment, and share this content.
Yes.
And so let's get right into it. So, love and sex part 2. We actually asked you, the audience, to ask us questions of what you would like to hear. If you didn't listen to our to my first podcast, you can go check it out in the different Apple and Spotify and the whole good. So the first thing they're asking here, baby, is what is the difference between love and sex? What is the difference? Good question, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to start it off and then I'll kick it over to you. All right.
Sure.
Well, first of all, we know that from the beginning of time, in God's point of view, God made Adam and Eve, and it says that Adam knew Eve. And that word knew has to do with intimacy, it has to do with knowing in a sexual way. But intimacy, or love, true love, is spirit, soul, and body connection.
Yeah.
When we talk about sex, oftentimes people are relating the physical connection, right? The physical desire. But that true intimacy, that true connection will be void if there's not emotional, mental, and heart connection. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And so talk a little bit about that.
So there is a difference between love and that connection and what is the action and the moment of having a sexual intercourse or sex, as you will. So I feel like what is love, it's more like that deep-rooted, the psychological part behind that physical touch. It's more like that emotional touch.
Yeah.
What happens, what we share, what we talk.
Yeah.
Right?
So listen to the word intercourse. So inter meaning to enter, and course. It's like a course meal, and a course meal has different phases.
I'm a student. I'm just going to listen.
Student, listen to your master.
Yes. Google Gaga.
Google Gaga. Pause. We're going to go for technical difficulties back to the room. So, intercourse, entrance, right? There's different courses, right? Like the way when you sit down for a meal, you have your appetizer. She's looking at me.
Yes.
You have your, main course.
Yeah. You got the drinks.
You have drinks, you have appetizer, you have your main course, and you have dessert, right?
Yes.
And some people just ended off with a little bit of razzle dazzle tea. But, there's phases, right? And I'm going to go into that in terms of entering those phases in sex. But when it comes to spirit, soul, and body, there's phases. God made us spirit, soul, and body. If you follow the Bible in the Old Testament, there was a tabernacle that God told Moses to build, and it had an outer court, inner court, and holies of holies. And so we know that there are phases and there's different realms of connection. And so when you have Jesus in your life, or when you have the Lord in your heart, it's so much easier to connect spiritually, because you're connecting with that person at the core of their being, right? And many people just stay in that outer court. They have that one night stand, or they have that sexual experience. It's a lust, it's a desire.
It's just the pleasure.
But it's the pleasure, but it's superficial. It doesn't last.
Right.
And then there's people that have that emotional connection, right? But don't necessarily are getting pleased sexually.
Yeah.
So all three are important to really have a total sexual satisfaction.
Yeah.
Is how are you guys connected in your soul, in terms of being soulmates, in terms of your purpose and your destiny, and that unconditional love that you're committed, where there's trust, where your heart can trust.
So what advice can you give to a couple that is Christian and they've been married for, let's say, more than 10 years or 5 years or whatever, and the woman's desiring that connection, but the man doesn't know how to get to that place? Or so
to get that connection, number one, first of all, it's like when you say hearing God is knowing God, you can't know God unless you spend time with him. So to know his voice is to know the person. Like, I can hear you in a room and be blindfolded, and when I hear your voice, I know it's you because I've spent time with you. So when you accumulate time, you accumulate connection. Yeah. And that connection begins to bring intimacy, where you know that person in an intimate way.
Yeah. So there is this video I was watching on Instagram of a lady having a live podcast with her husband in a live audience. And she kind of like exposed him. It was a little weird, awkward. But ultimately what she was saying was, I want you to tell me you love me because I need to hear it for myself. The way that you tell others, how are you? Let me hug you. Let me pour attention into you. She was saying, I want that same kind of attention, but I want it because I'm your wife. So what do you say to a man who struggles to have that
Thank you, my love. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great questions. So,
and by the way, you do an amazing job. To me, you know, you fill my cup in that area. So,
kudo points, 3 stripes. So let me go to the first question.
Yeah.
How about that? So when it comes to that connection, I believe there's many different things that are important for us to connect at a spiritual, soul, and body level, right? So number one, I believe that when we're connected to the God that we know, it helps so much. Like, I personally have experience from being without Christ and having sexual relationships where there was a void, there was an emptiness, there was not that heart connection. But in marriage, I have found that missing glue was the word of God, the presence of God, that brought about an unconditional knowledge of love. That's number one. Number two, because I know that it's important, God loves communication, my communication with you has grown, and vice versa. So whenever our communication line is disconnected, we notice it in our intimate life. Like, it's dry. There's not that razzle dazzle.
Well, we catch attitudes.
You know, it's just kind of like, let's get through this type of deal. And it's not fluid. There's not that passion. So it's so important that we deal with heart issues. Yeah. And that there's lifestyle of forgiveness, that there's transparency. I can't emphasize enough. Great sex is great transparency. So, you know, as we open up with one another and we share those deep fears or even those deep secrets that are in our lives, that we can love each other through that, it makes us so, I mean, conversations that we've had throughout the years where things that maybe we didn't want to talk about and we talked about it, it brought us so much more intimate. Yeah. And the sex was even deeper.
It was.
So, you know, the depth of your heart connection will be the depth of your sex, right? And so communication, sharing your dreams, sharing your desires, sharing your weaknesses, and being vulnerable and knowing that you're in a safe place. And if you are the other person, not getting offended when they're sharing their deep space. Yeah. Because you could close them off and then they won't want to open up again.
They won't open up again. It'll be hard to build that trust.
Like, I was afraid to share all my past history because my wife didn't have, sexual experience,
history.
right? And me, I was the total opposite. So I was like,
you're a loose cannon.
I'm a loose cannon, and I felt bad. But her loving me, even when I told her my most darkest secrets, it was so assuring and
it
welcoming.
Also brought us closer.
And it brought us so much closer. And your maturity and your love is such an example for women and for men, and vice versa. Being able to love each other through that and know that's your past. Mm-hmm. That's under the blood. That's once again the spiritual component.
Come on.
It's under the blood.
Under the blood.
And because it's under the blood, we can be whole. Now,
amen. So powerful.
This is awesome, right? So let's talk about the physical now.
Yeah.
So you were saying, how can a woman...
Mm-hmm. What was I saying? Remind me.
How can a woman, how can we help someone that's struggling where maybe there's not that connection, or we're losing that connection physically or emotionally? So, I think it's important that they talk.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that they share, I'm frustrated in this area. We have had moments where we've shared frustration, like whether it's communication or even in sex.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a survey once that said that usually, in marriages have surveyed that like 1 out of 4 times of sex is usually great sex. And then there's times where maybe it was good, but it wasn't the best. It wasn't like bam, you know what I mean? Right. And then there's moments of frustration. And I think marriages should know.
That's true.
Marriages should know it's not always perfect.
Yeah.
There's moments of stress. There's moments where the kids are driving you crazy and the bills, right?
Yeah.
Moments of, I have a headache.
Yeah. I'm not in the mood.
I'm not in the mood.
Let's just cuddle tonight.
The man is like, having that blood rush, needing his release, and she's just, on the phone, trying to decompress. So I think that it's important being honest and saying, hey, I'm frustrated. I need you.
Yeah.
And being able to share that. What would you say to a woman?
Well, I wanted to say that this is very common as well, where the woman will complain and say, but he always wants physical sex. and the physical touch and the sex, and I can't give that to him because I'm not there. So that's where I feel like the biggest root problem is, where the woman feels she can't give that because it's not in her nature, or she's not in the desire in the same way that the man is. And I feel like it's not just, I understand that it's not in our nature as women to always want that drive or be at that level. But as a woman, I am responsible for my husband. If he is craving something, that I be that one person for him, because what we don't want is that I can't provide the solution, so he has to look elsewhere. I feel like it's my duty as a woman of God as well to preserve my relationship and not push him away, not reject him, not turn my back just because I don't feel like it. Of course, if my tank is empty, then there's going to be this vicious cycle. I think we talked a little bit about that in part 1.
Yeah, that's so good, babe. That is so good. That's absolutely right. Like, there's a saying in Spanish that says, la calle está mala. It says that the streets are no good. And when there's a love tank empty on either side, your wall of trust, of respect and vulnerability comes down. Yeah. And temptation is easier. Yes. And desire is going wild. And any image or video or even woman or man that comes around, the guard is down and it's dangerous.
So I think that first and foremost, even if that line has been crossed, that trust barrier has been crossed, I think that we need to recalibrate and establish a boundary to keep our relationship from continuing to have that habit, right? So establishing a boundary and saying, this is what we will tolerate, this is what we will not tolerate, and let's regroup. And then establish rules in the marriage where if it's coming close to that temptation in the man or in the woman, that there's an open line of communication.
Like with me, I'm honest with her. Like when I feel like we haven't had intimate time or whatever, I'm like, babe, I need you. I want to spend time with you. Or like if I'm traveling, I don't want to travel alone. I want you by my side. Or, I had an instance once in my first year of marriage where we had someone that, would help and to serve and whatnot. And this individual,
female,
I perceived there was some, things in that person's life that were not closed from their past. And, my wife was working with this girl and helping her in her journey with God. But I told my wife, babe, please don't leave me alone with so-and-so person. I'm perceiving something that makes me feel uncomfortable. Not a knock on her. I think it's something
Right.
she still has open in her life.
Yeah.
And all the devil needs is an opportunity. Please, be with her. Close that door. Be a shield of protection around me. Me being vulnerable like that and sharing that protected my life. And she didn't take it against the girl. She took it as more, wow, my husband entrusted me this. Let me guard him. Let me be a
Right.
safeguard. That's an example of setting boundaries. Now,
Yeah.
I think, baby, as well, going back to what you were saying, it was so good, in terms of being able to know the love language of your spouse. And
Yeah.
your love tank is one way, mine is another.
Right.
Like mine, could be words of affirmation and, physical touch.
Yeah.
Yours is that quality time. Yours is as well, words of affirmation. So it's so important that we both understand what our love languages are and that we make each other a priority even
Yes.
before our needs.
Yes.
Having that servant mindset, Bible says that Jesus, he gave his life for his bride and he loved her unto death. It's that, when you go into marriage with a servant mentality,
Yeah.
it's so much easier to give than it is to receive.
Yeah.
And you end up getting more when you give more,
Yeah.
especially if both are God-fearing people,
Yeah.
right? So I think having that mindset as a servant,
Mhm.
like if I go into sex with a servant mindset, I'm not going with ego. I'm not going with pride. I'm not going with selfish interest. I'm going to serve. I'm going to give. I'm going to love. And guess what? I'm going to reap it.
Yeah.
Because a woman that is filled emotionally in connection and quality time is going to overflow
Yeah.
right back. And I can witness that.
Glory to God.
The best shebangs that we've ever had has been me making some great deposits, right? And vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to recognize that, right?
Mhm.
And I think some marriages struggle, is like what you said, because the man in nature is wired with more testosterone, right?
Mhm.
Which is greater sex drive, and the woman not. And that's wired the way we were designed.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean women are not sexual, and it doesn't mean men are not emotional.
Mhm.
It's just we have to be intentional to say, okay, I know that this is an important part of my spouse's life,
Yeah.
and I have to have the love and the interest to invest
Yes.
into that area of their lives. Does that make sense?
So powerful.
So I have to have, we're just here in Hawaii, so you're going to hear all type of things in the background. That's okay. So having that connection comes from being able to identify that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I think that's very powerful. Well said. It's so important for that woman to know that, like, that desire may not be there, but that's fine, And like you said so powerfully, that you want to serve, you come with the mindset to serve. And the woman as well. I come in with the mindset to serve because I want my marriage to last. And sex is a very big part of our life.
It's not everything, but it's
not
very
everything.
important.
And with that mindset is a huge game changer because I'm here to serve my husband. I'm not a slave. I am not this woman that's, you have to submit and do what I say, and I have
Right.
to, this approach of like obligation. It's with joy.
It's a delight.
It's
It's
a
a privilege.
delight.
It's an honor.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so I think that going back to that point, I think it's a big struggle where either the man or the woman, in the beginning, what people call the honeymoon stage, like we always told each other from the beginning,
Yes.
we are never going to lose our honeymoon stage.
Yes.
And to this day, we live it.
Yeah.
And it's something that we have declared,
Yeah.
we have said, and we have been intentional. And when we see it going down a bit, we catch ourselves and say, hey, wait a minute. We made a vow that we would never lose the lifestyle of honeymoon.
Yeah.
What does that mean? That doesn't mean love definitely gets deeper, it matures, but there are so many different ways that we learn on this journey to love each other
Yeah.
and to use creativity
Yeah.
in the new seasons of our lives
Yeah.
to make love to one another,
It's
right?
something that you said last night. We were walking while the sun was setting. We were walking on the sidewalk and there was a couple in front of us, and the whole way walking, he just made me laugh and I was just giggling one thing after another.
Yeah.
And what did he tell me?
I said, so you can see the health of a marriage by a marriage that keeps on laughing.
Yes, and that touched me because I was looking at the couple in front of us, and I'm not judging them. I don't know their life, but they were just walking, And
Not holding hands,
just a little
separated,
dry.
right in front of each other, a little
It's
dry.
like,
And you don't know what they're going through, like
You
you
don't
said,
know.
but it's so healthy to keep laughing and not to take things so serious.
Yeah, and be intentional, right?
And being intentional. And that's another thing. So, and there's so much to talk about. So when it comes to sex,
we got time.
Yeah.
We're in paradise.
I know. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be this pressure. Like, you know, I think that there's marriages that go into it, and when a marriage has had a deep sex life with many partners, or porn, or, you know, just, you know, having that crazy life, you've been exposed to so much that you may come with that baggage and that expectation, and that's not godly. That is not fair for your spouse.
Yeah.
Because when you say I do, you're saying I do to all of you.
Yeah.
You're saying I love the whole you in and out unconditionally. You're the best thing that could happen to me, and no one measures up.
Yeah.
There's no one comparable. You are the best version of my soulmate that I can ever. That is love. And it's a decision, it's a commitment, and you're focused on knowing for the rest of my life, this is my soulmate. Deeper than even physical comparison. It's no one can compare to who you are inside and out.
And I just want to say that it's so important as a couple to pace yourselves. There's no rush. There's no race. You know, it might take longer, but that's okay. You got to enjoy the process.
Yeah, and I think it's dangerous when a spouse starts comparing their previous sex life. You know, whether it was a man or a woman, you know, whether you like better features of them than your spouse, or you're comparing their looks, you're comparing their size, you're comparing all these different things. That is not healthy.
Yeah.
Because love, like I said, is pure, is unconditional, and it's deeper than the physical. It goes beyond the body. Yeah. It's a covenant of a life.
So if you're battling with these issues, it's like my husband said, take it to the blood. Take it to the blood of Jesus.
You take it to prayer, and you as well, you know, understand that this person, this relationship is the most important person in your life. And when you're in covenant, there's no one better or bigger. There's no one that fills your heart like this person. And when you understand that, that's the most valuable thing to you. Like, I value my wife because I know she's God's greatest gift for me. I value every inch of her. Everything about her is beautiful to me because I love her. When it's true love and not lust, when it's lust, that's when you start comparing size, image, shape. You start comparing looks. You start comparing sex drive, sexual encounters. Don't measure your spouse by your past. Your past is under the blood, and when you're justified, it means just as if it never happened. And God restores your innocence, and you come into this with a clean slate, right? And it's not going to be the experience of before. It's not supposed to be, because this is the soulmate. You're having this new experience with this soulmate, and you're enjoying new experiences on a new journey, right? And I think that, you know, people struggle because they bring baggage from the past. They're putting this expectation on the person, and then there's a pressure to perform.
Yeah. Wow.
You're not supposed to perform. This is not, you're not performing for the world, right? This is in front of God, and being able to laugh, make mistakes. Like, can I just be real? You know, sex is messy. It's sweaty. It's sometimes stinky. It's sometimes, you know, there's just odors. Let's be real. People need to hear this kind of talk.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. It's holy, and it's okay. Like, you know, there's men that get frustrated if they release too quickly, or women that get frustrated because they're comparing from another man that didn't come as quickly, and now you're putting all this pressure on your man. That's not love. Love is patient. Love is gentle. Teach one another. Help one another. Communicate. Hey, I'm having this urge. I need to slow down. Like, I'm getting ahead of myself in terms of sex tips, but it's so important to not put that pressure on the sex performance. This is intimacy. This is love. This is organic. This is pure. This is gentle, kind, full of faithfulness. And the deeper that connection is, the greater the sex will be. I promise you. Right? So, having given that foundation,
I have a question. Based off of what one of the people have asked. What is permitted in sex?
Can I first ask what's the difference between love and sex?
Oh,
is that okay?
We're still on point number 1. Sorry.
So, when it comes to love, you know, love is agape, which is without reserves and unconditional. Sex, we know it more as that physical expression, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's important that when it comes to this love and sex topic, you can't just go in expecting what you want and expect that your needs are going to be fulfilled. Like, I need to know that making love is different than having sex. Making love, I'm connecting intimately. I am cherishing all of you, enjoying the moment, like staying in the moment, you know, not having my head already ready for a release,
Right.
but taking my time and kissing you and kissing your neck and holding your hand and looking into your eyes and making love. You see the difference? Making love and having sex. Having sex is just, I'm going in for the orgasm.
Right, right.
You know, I just want a quick release. And that could be fun too. There's nothing wrong with, moments where neither one of us are in the mood, but we're like, we can't let this continue to go.
Right.
We need to live this life. Let's
Right.
pop on. Let's get this out. Right? So, and that's mutual.
Yeah.
Right? So, all right. Your question.
Okay, what is permitted in sex?
All right. So, this is a very important question. I think that when it comes to people away from the things of God, people just all is acceptable,
Right.
or people all inclusive. People have different opinions or barriers or boundaries. But as a godly man or woman, what should and shouldn't be allowed in the marriage? Well, let me say this first of all. Number one, I believe that when Adam and Eve were created and designed, there was nobody else around. And I believe that it was intentional. It was just God, because it's always meant to be a relationship between God, the husband, and the wife. It's nobody else's business what goes on in the marriage bed.
I like that.
In the book of Hebrews, it says that Paul began to say how the marriage bed is undefiled and it is pure.
Yeah.
So I want you to understand, husbands and wives, that especially God-fearing men and women, that, you don't want to do something that's displeasing before your creator. I want you to know that love is pure. The bed is undefiled, meaning no one can touch it. No one can get into that secret place. No one can get into that sacredness of you and your spouse. And for me, that is why it's so important that a husband and a wife talk through what their desires are and talk through what their boundaries are.
Yeah.
And I think there's women that battle with things that have been said in church, where preachers will say you can do this and you can't do that. I will say to that person, grab that list, rip it apart, and burn it. Because only God, you, and your wife should be having these conversations. The Holy Spirit that counsels you and guides you into all truth is the only one that should be convicting your conscience of what is permissible in your marriage. Because what is maybe permissible to you guys, maybe is not permissible to us. We have boundaries, okay? For example, porn is not acceptable. That is out of our boundaries. And there are marriages that want to get off on porn, and that is demonic. It is unhealthy for the brain. It activates in the brain the same thing that cocaine and drugs would activate, which means it's an addiction that will bind you and you won't be able to be set free. And thank God, by the grace of God, we have never had any porn in our lives, whether individually or as a marriage. Our marriage has stayed pure. But there are marriages that have gone into that to get a higher fix, because your love tank is empty in your soul and your emotional connection. You're looking for a greater sex release.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is you're going to have an instant gratification, but a lifelong of regret, guilt, and bondage. And guess what? It's not going to satisfy. You're going to want more. Then you're going to want the real thing. Then you're going to go and you're going to have affairs. And so that's the danger of not having boundaries. There's some people that ask, well, is oral sex something that's out of the equation? Once again, that is personal. That is something between you and your spouse. For some, there's nothing wrong with it. For some, it's an issue. And I think that marriages should know it's okay if both of you agree. And it's also okay if both of you are not okay with it. Now, if one is and one is not, I think it's going to take some deep prayer, soul searching, and communication. But I want spouses to know, when it comes to loving, her body is yours. His body is hers. That's what the Bible teaches us. So what you do unto one another is such a personal conviction, right?
Yeah. I think it's so important to respect those boundaries, respect those feelings from each other,
That's right.
and don't push it, because that's where it can get a little murky, a little weird, a little uncomfortable, awkward, and it can actually pull you apart. And that's not the objective. The objective is to be drawn close to each other.
That's good, babe. And also, I think the question is why? Why is it not good for you? What's the root cause? Is the root cause that you were damaged?
Oh, yeah.
Did someone force it upon you growing up?
Yeah, you had a childhood
You have a trauma. Because for some people, it's issue with traumas. And you got to go back to your past, and through the presence and the word of God, bring healing to those areas of your life. Number two, for some people, it's a teaching, a book, a family member that brought that baggage onto you. You also need to be set free from man's opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, I just told you biblically, God has given the man and the woman the freedom to choose under God what is permissible in your bed. Not a pastor, not a leader, not a influencer, not a guru. It's you and your spouse.
Yeah.
And people are missing such great sex and fun and pleasure and laughter and just being childlike because of religious mindsets, because of limitations, and your sex is boring. Let me tell you something.
Wow.
We will not allow our sex to get boring. Why? Because the love is too strong to be monotonous.
Yeah.
You see, God is a creator, means that his nature is creative. So it's in our DNA to be creative. And when you lose that element, you lose the element of surprise. And when you lose the element of surprise in marriage, you become familiar. And guess what? Someone's not going to be happy.
Yeah. And then someone can, outside of the marriage, come and compliment the female or the male.
Girl, you're looking good.
And then I can build some kind of, I don't know,
well,
familiarity to flirting to somebody outside of marriage.
If your cup is full, there's no space for it.
Yeah.
That drop, there's nowhere to go.
Right.
But if it's empty, it's going to feel something.
Yeah.
And that feeling is going to want more.
Yeah.
You see, and I think there's women that have this mindset like, he just always wants sex.
Right.
You know? And it's so important that even if it's not your stronger sex drive, you meet him halfway.
Yeah.
Like if you want him to meet you emotionally and connect with you, you need to be willing to deliver as well.
Well, I was just going to say that maybe that's just his love language or way of expressing, I want connection with you.
No, it's not maybe. It is 1,000%.
And that's what gets to him.
And that's what you have to understand, that his love connection to you is not necessarily the same for you to him. That doesn't mean he's bad. That doesn't mean he's wrong.
Good, yeah.
Oh, he's just this lying. He just always wants sex, 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 sex. Well, he's wired that way. Your God wired him that way.
That's right.
And you need to meet him halfway so that you're sowing love and you can reap it. I guarantee you. You meet him halfway, you come to a mutual agreement, that man is going to suck your toe. That man is going to get your nails done. That man's going to fulfill your connection dreams because he's happy.
Yeah.
And vice versa, man. Like, if you know she loves you, just cuddle. Man, keep that penis in your pants and just cuddle and hold her, watch her, look at her eyes, laugh at that movie, and then know what time it is. Look her in the eye and say, you know what's up. You understand what I'm saying? It's like making a contract. You're making a mutual agreement with one another.
Yeah.
And marriages fail because after time, they get monotonous. They think they figured it all out.
Right.
There's no more surprise.
Right.
You've seen each other naked so many times already.
Yeah.
You've had already sex in so many positions. You look like a pretzel.
Yo. Oh my goodness. You got no filters on today. You're looking like a pretzel. Oh my God.
You looking like a pretzel. And now you think you got it all figured out. There's nothing exciting anymore. That's not how it works. You see, because intimacy is priority. Connection is priority. So we need to find a way to connect in a fresh way.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is with creative ideas, with planning, with intentionality. Like, for example, with my wife, if I know we're going on a little bit of a, similar sex pattern this week. I need to change it up. I need to come up with a plan. What can I do?
I need to come up with a
or
plan.
you need to come up with a plan. And
because it can't just be him.
It can't just be on one person. It's so important because then you put all the pressure on someone.
And we've been there where we've had arguments where he's like, are you kidding me? I'm the one that keeps spending. I'm like, no, I'm the one. And he's like, no.
Well, you got to admit.
It's always him. It's the truth.
And I'm like, girl, you creative? Come on, girl. Work that magic, babe.
Yeah.
You know, and so.
Change it up.
It's
like one of our mentors told me, to me as a woman, she told me, you might not be in the mood to work out. You might wanted to go into the gym and sweat. But trust me and believe me when I say that when you start working out, your body gets into it and then you want to. You desire, you want to work out. And it's the same way with sex.
And it's the same thing with God.
And it's the same thing with God. Come on.
It's faith to pray when you don't feel like it.
Yes.
And people think, yeah, but I'm being fake. I don't feel it. Since when do you got to first feel it in order to act on the things of God? You see how it applies? If you apply the spiritual, it's going to overflow into your soul and into your body.
Yes.
It's the principle. Like, I will wake up, I'm dead tired, I don't feel like praying, but by faith, I give it unto God until I'm activated and I'm in it and I want it.
Yeah.
You see? It's the same way with sex. You will not feel it sometimes. You're tired, you're worked up, you're stressed out mentally. But if by faith, you start doing it because you prioritize her.
Yeah.
Because you love him. And you want to make it, and you're valuing that person in your life. You do it, you act on it, and little by little, it starts raising up the desire. You know how many times you or me would say, I'm not really in the mood, but all right. And next thing you know, bang, the rockets are on the way to Mars, and we are just excited beyond belief. And then we look at each other and say, we should be doing this more often. We're missing on because we say that we're too tired, you know?
Oh my God, yes.
And so, so that is so good, babe.
Yeah.
Like, you know, being able to start. And how do you start in faith? Words.
Yeah.
You know, soft kisses.
Touches.
Soft touches.
Tickles. Massaging is another one.
Massaging is so good.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. There's nothing better than relaxing the body to activate those sensors.
Yeah, with some hot oil.
Yeah, with some oil. Your preference, whatever temperature. But the massages relaxes your body, and it makes you your sensitivity to your sensors and your intimate areas will awaken because of relaxation. That's so key. Did you know that stress is gonna compress down on your sexual drive? But when you relax, when you massage, when you pray, when you meditate, when you exercise, when you eat clean, when you drink plenty of water and you rest, you're allowing your body to do its function and to awaken those sexual sensors. Yeah. It becomes like let me tell you something. Eating plant-based has not only helped our physical life and health, but it's a trigger. Let me tell you, like eating clean allows your sensors to be easier activated. Intermittent fasting is
detoxing.
It detoxes all that toxins in your body that could be blocking your sex drive.
Yeah.
Your testosterone levels maybe are low, and there's not a drive, right? You know, so listen, there's so much good stuff. I mean, what is permitted and not permitted, it's personal. It's between you two. And don't be afraid of being creative, of trying new things within your boundaries, you know, of I got more to say. Should we leave it for part 3? I think we'll leave it for part 3. We'll do a love and sex part 3. And I think we'll start talking a little bit more about that main course.
There you go.
Join us in for our next podcast.